you do have that. Also, another example of where exactly these reports can be hidden. Again, legally they're obliged to publish activity reports on their website. It says nowhere in the law that it has to be in a particular place. So they hide them in the most creative of places. In one case, the activity report that we were looking for was hidden in a bundle of general announcements, right? Just in a bundle. There was no specific section in the website dedicated to that. In other cases, it's in the mayor's profile. So you get the big picture of the mayor, and somewhere at the bottom of the page you see their activity report. And in some cases, and this was my favorite one, you don't even see it on the website. You have to manually change the link in the address bar up here. Manually type in the year of the report that you want, modify the link, and hope that it matches what's on their server, and you'll get it. In some cases, I actually had to hack into their own server, get the activity reports, and I seriously considered whether or not I should delete some of their stuff as vengeance. I didn't, but the debate was real. Now, getting back to the issue at hand, these are some of the corruption issues that we're talking about. I've mentioned the prosecution aspect. I've mentioned the civic engagement aspect, what people can do or how they can get involved. I mentioned how institutions try to avoid the law, either by hiding their annual reports, either by giving irrelevant responses to questions, and so forth. These things worked for a while. Because these things happened, we actually had to sue several institutions. And one of them is even the Mayor of Bucharest, where we've sued them several times for refusing to offer us otherwise public information, and we've won every single time. Again, this sets a standard because it tells them what they can or cannot do. Unfortunately, the law of precedence in Romania doesn't hold in courts, so you can get different rulings for exactly the same case. It's not like in the States where you have precedents basically becoming law, you know. So, what we're going to discuss next is some of the successes that we've registered. Now, I've mentioned before, it's quite old news, so I doubt you'll see it on the home page. But you did see it, you did have it at some point. Let me just check. We sent, now the same things I'm telling you, the same problems that we've encountered, we've also sent to the government, right? They know this stuff. It's not like we're shouting at them and they're not hearing it. They received a list of 17 recommendations of how they can improve the law regarding access to public information, and 14 of them actually became public policy. There was a memorandum adopted this month, actually on the 6th, that introduced a deadline for publishing your annual reports. So now you have to have them on your website by March 1st. And we're going to check how many of them actually respected that. They're going to publish all public procurement contracts on their website, and a lot of other things that we requested. There's a standard format they have where they have of the website, standard sections, including one specifically for annual reports and so forth. This is one of our greatest, this is our largest, most recent success. We're looking to the current government, which is technocratic basically. They're not mostly members of political parties. We're looking to them to make changes as irreversible as possible to make sure that future governments don't go back on this. Right? And we've had a good cooperation with them thus far, and we'll be happy to contribute even more in future years. This is all well and good. However, I have to show you the other side of the story. Right? It's good to have a Freedom of Information Act, but the fact that you need a Freedom of Information Act tells you what the institutional culture is. Information in Romania is not public by default. you have to ask. And increasingly, fewer and fewer information is being published unless the law specifically requires it. So if the law asks you to publish your name and your office, but not your salary, you're not going to publish it. It's not because they can't, the law allows them to, it's because they just don't. In many, many cases, there's no initiative, no incentive to publish more than what the law expressly requires. And because of this, you run into situations where you cannot even get information from an official spokesperson of an institution without filing a formal request. Therefore, the dialogue, the informal dialogue that you used to have is now being formalized and buried in paperwork. And keep in mind, the only way to get an answer from an institution that does not reply to one of your requests is to go to court, which is something most people are not willing to do. We do it because we're an organization, we have funding to do this type of stuff, we have friends who know the law and who are willing to represent us pro bono, but most citizens do not. So they can either appeal to us or they can drop it. And in most cases they drop it, given that the length of a trial is over a year. By the time you get your information, it's no longer relevant to you, you don't care anymore, or it wasn't that important to you to begin with. So we're looking to suggest integrating such proposals even further into actual administrative reform. We want information public by default. You should not have to ask for something that you're entitled to know. It's a lesson that isn't a problem in many places around the world. I think Denmark is one of those places where a lot of information is public by default. Romania is not one such case. We're still working on it. We're still trying to fight the, in many cases, ignorance about it. We still have to explain to institutions why institutional transparency is good, not only as an anti-corruption measure, because you're less likely to be corrupt if you know people are watching, but for good government, for good governance. The more information you have, the more of an informed decision you can take, as opposed to currently where public policy are mostly taken intuitively or based on a very short-term objective. Which is why you get a legal framework and exceptions and exceptions and exceptions. And you can't have any type of predictability if you keep adding and adding and adding exceptions. Again, it's one of the directions that we're going through. And we do have some breakthroughs. Recently, I don't know if you've heard about this, it caused quite a buzz in Romanian media. A portal was launched where all public institutions are required to publish their budgets, all of them, which is huge, needless to say. So far, what some institutions did with public money was more mysterious than what happens at the center of the black hole in the middle of the Milky Way. It was that far away. We have no idea what goes on with the money. Now we have a portal that, one second.